All right, the August 2022 meeting for the Board of Directors for the South Whidbey Parks and Recreation District is called to order at 6:02. Is there anyone for public comment?
No one has submitted anything and nobody's in the room, so we're good.
Moving on, has every commissioner had an opportunity to review the meeting minutes from July?
I have.
Yes.
Are there any questions or changes? I will entertain a motion.
I'll second the motion. Sorry. I'll make a motion.
I'll move.
Go
Go ahead, Jake.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from July 20th, 2022.
I'll second that.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the July 20th, 2022 Board of Directors meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Jake, aye.
Matt, aye.
Jennifer, aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it and the meeting minutes are passed. Moving on to the treasurer's report. Matt.
Yeah, if you can pull it up, Doug.
It should be live. There it is.
I still don't see it in the screen in the meeting window.
It might be on a delay, but it's up here.
Let me see if I can get to. No, I still don't see it shared, and I have it locally. I can talk to it, but it'd probably be good to troubleshoot that.
Oh, you know what? That's probably why I forgot to do that.
Hi, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
We can see your face.
I'm sharing the screen from now on. No. Not my first hour.
Sharing is caring, Doug.
Sharing is caring. There we go. How's that, Matt?
There we go. Hey, there we go. Okay, so go back to the first slide.
There you go.
Yep. Okay, so this is the summary with data through July, and you can see blue line is actual, and remember up is favorable, and you can see where we stand as of the end of the July numbers. 108K favorable to plan. July is noteworthy, and it's the first month. Carrie can confirm, but it's the first month where we've gotten clean and good data from the county. Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay. So anyway, and timely. So we were able to get this out a couple days before the meeting. So 108K favorable. You'll see in the next slide that the bulk of that is in expense control. The revenue picture first, you'll see roughly 8K of that is revenue favorability, and you can see how it's spread. Most of its programs favorable, but again, a small percentage value. And then if you look at next slide, expenses, you'll see the bulk of it. Our favorability is in expense controls between maintenance and programs, and again, summing to roughly 101K, and the rounding gets us to 108 total. And then the last slide shows fund balances on plan. One other thing I want to point out from the data, you got the actual data. So there's a worksheet in the meeting copy of this that's titled Chart Data 2022. It's the last worksheet. We did make a change this month to reflect the fund balance transfer that happens in January every year. We, we show this with January numbers that reflect the transfers that we have to make from the M&O to the reserve fund to achieve our initial cash balance that we need for the, to begin the year per our fundamental principles. And we had in the file, we just had a note that said we made this transfer, but we didn't show the transfer in the math for the fund balances. So now if you look in the January value for the M&O fund, you see a debit in the amount of roughly 73,000, which was the outflow from M&O. And then in the reserve fund, you'll see an increase of that same amount, 73,000 plus. So you can actually see the number in the math reflected in the actual what we did in January to transfer funds to achieve the beginning balance. I said cash balance, but the beginning reserve balance correctly in the month of January. So that's the only other change that we made to the Treasury report this month, but I want to make sure you're aware of that. And it's in the chart data 2022 in the January column for both the M&O fund and the reserve fund.
Hey, Matt?
Yep.
They don't receive that.
Say that again.
They don't receive that part of the report. And it probably would be helpful for them to have it, but it's not.
Okay, it's not posted when you post it to the board member space. Okay, so the good thing, you can just share that in the outcome of the meeting here. But it's the data that feeds these charts. So, okay, if there's no questions on that, we can go to the voucher update.
So let's see, on the vouchers here. So additions since Friday, we had Island Athletic Club, we paid them out for yogas in the park, their percentage of it. We paid Kyle Logan for umpiring softball league. We paid out Swim South Whidbey for the swim lessons this summer. Paid for electrical service, some Washington State Ferries for maintenance travel, umpire fees for Fred Wilmot, got some stuff from Zep, retirement, the deferred comp, and payroll tax. One to take credit card fees. Those are the additions.
Zep?
Zep is clean splash. Oh, and you may have missed, so there's also a few things that have been deleted from the list because we are pushing them to next month to pay. The big one was the archive social. Sherry's only bonded to a certain amount, and so we were hitting that amount, and we had to take a few things out, but you will see them.
And we're still over that amount, but
Less so. But being prudent is what we're being. Any questions on the vouchers?
If there are no questions, I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers from the M&O fund in an amount of $146,028 and 25 cents.
All right, I'll second that.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the vouchers in an amount of $146,028.25. All those in favor say aye.
Cheek aye.
Matt, aye.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the voucher list is passed. Moving on to the staff report, please, Doug.
Staff report, okay. So you can see a summer activities overview. We had all these people, lots in the swim lessons, a good amount in sailing. Yoga in the park did well. Volley kids had one session with 51 kids in it. Paddle sport camp had 8 in it. I mean, I don't know how many kids you can get on a paddleboard, but they got 8 of them. Open water swim was 15 with 2, so that's, I'm assuming that's 8 and 7 or something like that. Model rocket shop drew a lot as usual, and so did Magic Camp. So, drop in pickleball, the list is currently at 226 players. From Whidbey on the triathlon, we had 157 individuals registered, 11 teams with 32 team members registered, and it was a logistical success. This guy's still finalizing the financials with Gary, and as we finish up bills and stuff, we'll kind of try to get a post-mortem after the fact as soon as we can. Thanks to Krista and Jake for coming out and volunteering your time and efforts to the event, and I think Matt had a good race on that day. So.
Oh, that's right. You participated, didn't you?
We had archery classes canceled due to an instructor injury, and I'm assured that is not an archery injury.
I was wondering about that.
We are currently accepting proposals for the fall activity guide. And then we're going to have may have some gym issues as the South Whidbey Community Center retrofit of the main gym has been delayed. And this may impact gym access in the fall, winter months for basketball, pickleball, futsal, and volleyball. We're waiting on a decision from the school district, and we haven't had access since March of 2020. Community Pickleball Day was last Saturday at Sports Complex Pickleball Courts. From all reports, it went very well. And you can see here, these are 2 photos of last concert in the park on August 3rd with Doc Savage.
So bummed I missed that.
I know,
love
like
them.
look at the crowd. And then tonight is Inland Swing Orchestra in the park as well. So there's that going on. Our Google Analytics from the website, last 4 months versus 4 months prior. Yeah, I mean, trend of users is up. Our users is up. Our sessions are up. Our new users are up, which is all good news. So we're looking good. The dotted line would be the previous 4 months, and the solid line is the last 4 months.
What does it say it's up for new users? 79%? Is that what that says, or 70?
New users, 79.05%.
Okay.
So doing well there. Facilities and grounds. It's the summer, so our staff is dealing with many irrigation issues. Systems are aging, and we've had electrical problems as well as water line breaks, and of course replacing heads as needed. Again, aeration and top dressing will continue into fall as the fields require. Last week we had 2 trees that became a problem. One fell in Cedar Corner, and the other was leaning over by the turnaround by the shop, and they had to remove it. We have a couple of equipment issues arise, and are dealing with them as we can get parts and fix them. Softball just wrapped up, and that will allow some more renovation to be done on the infields for the fall. Me, I was on vacation for a week. I got back and finished up the PowerPoint presentations, which I'll show you at least one of them tonight. I don't think we need to go through all 4. They're all very similar. I'm done the final draft, and I've now finished all the final drafts. Contacted Aquatech Drilling and Pumps and got them started on decommissioning well number 3. They are sending the DOE letter, the Department of Ecology, the letter of intent that they were beginning on that. So that should have gone off to the Department of Ecology. Met with Sky, Matt, Eric, and Tom to discuss the field usage and issues we are seeing. We've got an agenda item on that, so Matt can report back on that. Finished up the request for qualifications for the aquatic center design and sent that out to 34 firms for responses. Those are due in our office on Friday. Terry and I have started our initial budget discussions and are looking into the bond issue for the Maxwell Trails property and what our next steps are. Again, more on both of those in the regular agenda. Upcoming events, well, we got the swing orchestra out there tonight, and then we've got our board meeting tonight, and we've got our next monthly board meeting on 9/21. Any questions on the staff report?
The request for qualifications, were those firms, did they know we were going to send that to them? Were they already aware that we were going to send it?
Some were, the ones we've been working on were aware that it was coming out. Aquatic Design Group, Patano, they were aware. But what we do is we have a roster. We are part of the MRSC roster, is Municipal Research Service Corporation. And they provide a roster of anything that we want, consultant-wise or public works-wise. And I just go in and I download a list of firms that have said pool architecture, and I send it out to all of them. So,
Okay.
I had a couple of people kind of email me back saying, thank you, we'll take this to the partners, thank you this, thank you that. So hopefully we'll get some good responses. I'm hoping we get a few. Be nice to have more than one to look at.
If we
Oh,
don't.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Jake, since we had started with the group that Doug was referencing, as part of the cost estimating process, we reached out to a bunch of the suppliers for equipment. The guys who actually make the pools, the guys who make the media filters, the guys who make this and that. So, and then after we started sending those RFQs out, we've gotten calls from other firms. So it's a relatively small and close-knit industry. And I think many people out there are aware that there's a project, at least in the works, on South Whidbey. So I think we're going to get a response. There's an awareness out there at the manufacturer level for the various components because of the quoting activity that we did. So I think we're going to get a response because people are aware that there's work going on South Whidbey on a project of some sort.
That's great. Yeah, when I first saw it, and I don't know the swim industry, I thought 2 weeks was a little short. If someone had never heard of the project to submit a qualification request, and I didn't know if we only get, say, one or two, if there's any thought about.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I think that for sure. If we, it is an unusual time in terms of, we've seen with our own park vendors, people's workload and backlog in some cases is extreme. So yeah, if we get limited feedback, or if we get people, responding by saying, hey, can we get more time, then for sure.
Oh yeah, the RFQ is written with the idea that we have the ability to reject any and all business. So we can say, we didn't get what we want, we're going to do this again.
Open it back up,
start over. You're welcome to listen again, but we want to get yeah. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I just want to say, from the experience from the triathlon and from talking to other people who participated in it, the park showed out incredibly well. Staff, in terms of the reception and all the induction and check-in process, people were extremely happy with that. The facilities and venues were all in fantastic shape. Course control and marshaling and that kind of thing was buttoned down and went extremely well. And all of the wrap up and aftermath that was in the park, folks getting to spend an hour or two in the park, everybody was just raving about the facilities and the material condition and the volunteers and support. So great job by Sky and for the whole staff and the support that came from Carrie and bringing that historical perspective and background, and the committee that volunteered. I think it was a great event for bringing a bunch of people into the park all at one time. So great job.
Yeah, awesome weather too. It was overcast until the end, and the sun came out. Were our numbers pretty similar to last year? Yeah, I think they were.
Yeah, I think we've been lower than in prior years. We didn't know that. We didn't know the triathlon. was a lot going on, so it was one of those, like, you know, it's a moving target trying to hit where we should put that date. So it's one of those where I don't think there was a good date this year, at all. I think every date had some sort of conflict.
Well, and it doesn't help,
Anything never avoid.
it doesn't help that the fair keeps floating its date around.
That's the biggest.
That's the biggest issue. That and Ragnar are our biggest. The fair, I mean, we just can't do it soon because the fair, that would not fly. And they move it around based on their ride vendor, when they can get a ride vendor to show somebody with all the carnival rides and stuff. So it's a constant moving target every year. Any other questions?
All right, let's move on to unfinished business. Let's start with the comprehensive plan programs.
So kind of touched on a lot of this. Aquatic wellness, we've got the RFQ out. 34 firms. Oh, sorry, I misspoke. August 22nd, the proposals are due. I think I did that because I'm out the next 2 days for sure. And I'm probably working from home on the 22nd, so I'll have to carry some instructions. But, gives them a couple extra days in the weekend to get their qualifications in. We'll then take those proposals or those qualifications to the, my plan is to take them to the joint pool committee. So Matt, Eric, Rich Butchflippy, and Marty Zimmerman and I will sit down and kind of weed through each of the groups and bring a recommendation back, and maybe we'll interview. We can interview up to 3 of those firms. So if we have only 3 firms, we can interview all 3 of them and see if there's somebody we like in those. But the goal is to have a recommendation with the contract work out to the board for the September board meeting for approval. Grant applications, all 6 of our grant applications for the cycle have been submitted. The presentations, I went through all the presentations and updated them, all 4 of them. There's only 4 that require presentations. Those have been updated. I'm going to show you those in a minute. I'm going to show you one of those in a minute. The schedule is next Tuesday, August 23rd, local parks. Matt will be joining me at the local parks Zoom meeting at 9:25, 9:45 meeting. Matt, are you there? We may have just lost Matt. 1 second. Well, the only thing we haven't done is the seed spur that needs to happen. Everything else is just discussion. So we can continue our discussion.
Okay.
And then he will be presenting the Land and Water Conservation Fund presentation for the amphitheater on Wednesday, 11:45.
Matt is.
Matt is doing all 4.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He did all 4 last time. He did all 5 last time, but this time there's only 4. And then that's really it for those. Update that I just got today is for the campground. Quinn contacted me today from Idaho, and what we're going to do is use their GPS to kind of mark where the septic systems are out there for the, we have to dig more holes, have the county come out for that one. So he's going to take his GPS out there next Wednesday and mark out where those are with some of his crew, and then we're going to be able to hopefully go in with Jim Burdo and the county folks to dig some holes and get that figured out so that we can move forward past site plan review and get started. PowerPoint presentations. Matt, are you back?
I am back. Sorry. Yeah, I lost the network for a second.
Nope, no worries. So I'm just going to walk through one of our PowerPoints. This is kind of the one Matt and I went through. So the feedback that we got was a lot of stuff with all of this was less text, more graphics, and bigger graphics. Show us what you're building. And it makes a lot of sense when you're thinking about the fact that you're going to be reviewing 88 of these and you're listening to things and put things in a certain way. So a lot of these are going to be the same. A lot of these slides are the same presentation to presentation. We have an intro slide with a picture of something or a picture of activities or whatever going on. And then we go to where are we in the state, where are we in the region, and where is the project located within the park. And they asked us to, and then you can see here it's got the Freeland UGA, it's 525, Huntington Ferry is 3 miles that way, it's that way. So that's indicated on that map. Then we talk about what's existing in the park versus what we're talking about. So you can see we talk about the field area we use currently for concerts and such, and then the actual amphitheater location. And then we go into need. Why do we need this? So we talk about our service area, what's our primary, what's our secondary, and then we go into where are other public outdoor amphitheaters. The closest are probably a 2-hour round trip. Okay, and we talk about that. And then we talk about how the amphitheater was identified based on survey, and then into the comprehensive plan. It is a specific objective in our comprehensive plan. And then we talk about what our concerts in the park are like now. And you can see this is Doc's average from August 3rd. So we can see there that we've got easily probably 200 people out there watching Doc's average on our baseball, softball outfield. Okay. Our goal is, that area is potentially, our estimate is about 250 people that are full. So that's what we're looking at. We talk a bit about the concerts, how many we do now, what we'd like to do, other things that it could be used for, that kind of thing, so that we can move down that road. So that's the need portion. So each of these categories, like need, and then project need, we also talk about. So this is a requirement, this slide. We have to talk. They have a little data tool on their website where you go in and you click on where the project is. It gives you the underserved and help for the census tract. So it talks about median household income, persons of color, disabled population, body mass index for teens, and mortality rate. Okay, so you can see on all but one of these, the census tract this project is located in, which is the basically Langley census tract. We only do not meet one of those. Okay, so and this went from a chart, or like just basically a table that showed all this data. They wanted something visual so you can look up and go, oh, I get it. And it was quick and easy to understand, which makes sense. But this really doesn't tell our story because that's not our service area. Right. So what I did is I went in, and I've done this with the other ones, is I put in this chart, which is our primary service area. So this talks about averaging all of the rates for our primary service area, and then we add in disabled populations. We are also not meeting the need. So
that's Clinton, Langley, Freeland?
That's Clinton, Langley. There's a bunch of different census tracts in there. It's up basically around to like it's what we would, our voting area, okay, is what it is. And it's averaged out. So then we can talk about those areas and our disabled population and our median income. And then we get to this slide, which is need satisfaction and diversity of recreation. So this is Land Water Conservation Fund presentation. On local parks, this same category is called project scope. So what are you doing to satisfy what you just told us you need this? How does this project meet that need is what these two categories. So it's basically the same slide with a different title at the top. And it talks about, you can see it labels out the ADA accessible pathway. We talk about free, concerts being free, being close to a free transit line so people could walk, being close to the local schools, walking distance from the schools. We can also put in walking distance from the campground in that. That's kind of what we discussed there. Then we go to project.
And Doug, just can I make one comment there, just for especially for Judy and Jen. So one of the things in this, going through the dry run that we did with the committee, whatever it was, 6-8 weeks ago, Doug, what became crystal clear, all this, the feedback we got on the nuts and bolts of the presentation, the crystal clear feedback, like 15,000 foot level, was that they the detail of these is relevant to them. They care about the detail and they understand the detail. So, like as Doug is saying, showing this, the picture that comes next or the graphic that comes next that shows like the context of what's in the park, that thing, like they get it because they're all parks people or connected to the parks in some way, so they understand. And when we say, oh, okay, now I see that your baseball and softball fields and little league fields are taken up by the concerts, and I see the conflict, and now I see how you're doing this separation. Like they want to know the details. So anyway, it may seem insignificant, or it may seem like insignificant in the grand scheme of this entire LWCF thing and the statewide programs, but they really do care about the accessibility of the walkway into the amphitheater on slide 17 of this, the 98th presentation that they see. It's amazing. I mean, it's amazing. So anyway, so that just to put it in context,
Yeah,
that's why it flows like this, I think.
it is, I don't think I've ever seen a perfect presentation where I've got nothing to tell you. There's always something that somebody on the panel will, hey, what have you thought about this? Hey, what have you thought about that? You can check it over. Now, when we're scoring, we're not giving advice anymore. So next week, we're literally just, I'm sitting two screens, and one screen is where I'm putting in my scores, the other one I'm watching the presentation. So it's going to be a long week next week. But it is, and then we have 12 minutes to present, and then there's 8 minutes where the committee can ask questions. So if they have questions about something, like they say, oh, well, I don't understand, why are you putting this in when you can just use your fields? Well, we can't use our fields, not every night. We can't, on a Friday, Saturday night, we couldn't have a movie in the park because our baseball, softball fields are using that space. So our baseball, softball league, our softball league is using that space. So it is that balancing act and going, okay, here's what we can do, and then can we draw more? Can we do more? Sure we could, but right now, this is limiting us. And that's the big key. But yeah, project design, we talk about it being part of the general park here, and then we talk about what we're building. The parking, the amphitheater with the storage, the slope line seating, the ADA accessible pathway. We talk about all of that, and how that works. Sustainability, one thing they talked about here was sustainability had 3 separate categories, but we had one slide and we were addressing all of them on one slide. One piece of advice we got from one of the groups was to say, hey, you should split those. Tell us about each separate factor. Well, duh, I mean, that's what we're doing with the presentation. We're making it really simple. We're going, here's our need. Project scope. Here's our design. Sustainability, well, it's only worth 5 points. I mean, project, a need is worth 10. I believe scope is worth 10 and design is worth 10. Sustainability is worth 5, but it's 5 points. And there's 3 different categories: ecological, social, and economical. And so what we were told to do is split those in 3 slides. So we started with ecological. We have a natural barrier of native plants and landscaping that's going to act as a sound barrier. That's going to be native plants and landscaping, and a sound barrier. We've got slope topography that requires minimal clearing and grading. So that's what we're talking about on that slide. And then we click to the next slide. Social factors. Well, it's available to people for free, right? We can come in here. We can have people in the campground can use it. It's in permitting phase, but they can walk over. The high school, middle school, and the elementary school are within walking distance. Free bus stop, free bus line is right there. Get there. Our events, our concerts are projected to be free. So it's all of that is included on this slide. And then we've got the economic factors. Well, it's located in our main park. It's literally right beside our maintenance facility. Okay? And it's also right next to our administrative facility. So that means that when we're programming concerts, we're not that far away. When we need to cut that slope lawn, we're not that far away. It's ease of maintenance, it saves money. We're not driving to a separate site to mow the amphitheater. Okay. Community support. Rather than just put a list, I just grabbed all the logos I could and threw them up there. So those are the letters of support that we received for the amphitheater project. And then we go into cost efficiencies where we talk about non-state and federal dollars going towards this project. Well, we have $30,000 in pro bono design work that's being done by Flat Rock Productions. We've got $15,000 in funds from the Rotary Club of South Whidbey. We've got district staff are going to trench for the power line of the facility using district-owned equipment. So that's another local thing that we're doing. And then we're choosing a site already owned by the district, so we're not buying land, and we're using a site already sloped and let's cut and fill, so that's less on the grading work. So all of those I throw in there, and then we finish up with a nice slide about questions, and follow that with a nice overhead shot so that, you know, if they have questions, we can kind of like go, and here is this, and this is over here, and yes, this is the entrance to the park. Here we can talk about that stuff if we need to. So all of the presentations look very similar. You know, the graphics on Eric did an amazing job on the graphics on this, so they look really great. But the other two are very similar in setup. A lot of the same slides and the same kind of point by point layout because, quite frankly, it makes it easier for the committees to understand and follow. So that's where we're at with those. Any questions on those? Anybody have any questions on the RFQ for the design? I can pull that up there too if you need to. No? Okay. Matt, are you still there? I heard a beep beep. Up here? Because if we're going to have connection issues next time we get them back, I want to do better because that's the only thing we need to actually work on.
Well, one comment, I love the small scale to large scale maps that you guys did. And
That's a requirement of them. They say, because literally you could have people right now, you know, people, somebody from Spokane who doesn't even know where beyond is. Right?
And the north arrow too. I see
Yeah.
so many maps that don't have the north arrow. Simple thing. It's really nice.
So Matt, you're back?
Sorry, I can hear you now.
Okay, you're back. So can we skip the next two really quick and go to seed spreader just in case we lose you again? If that's okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting notes. All right. So capital budget for this year, we budgeted $20,000 for a seed spreader slicer. U.S. state bid is what we went to. This alleviates the need for quotation process or local bid process. So we go to the state bid. The state bid out on this kind of thing. The bid is over the budgeted amount by about $2,000. It's about, I think it was 22, something around 22,358.40. Well decommissioning is also coming out of the capital budget already. So staff recommends the following adjustments to capital budget 2022 to allow for some of the proposed 2022 projects purchases to proceed. First off, we got a $2,000 what Tom calls his cushion. Picnic tables, garbage cans, benches. So we just leave that alone for right now. We've got the well decommissioning at 6,500 and change. We've got the cedar slicer at 22,358. So we're about 9,000 over almost, just about 9,000 over. Park asphalt improvements, we had budgeted 41,000. We're proposing to reduce that to $32,065. So that gives us a total of 63, the same as over here. So staff would bring recommended asphalt projects for that 32,000 to the board meeting for review probably next month if we get all our quotes in order and just kind of give you an order of magnitude. And we do recommend the state bid for the cedar slicer for a total cost of $22,358.40. And you might be asking, what is a cedar slicer?
The attachment helped a lot.
The aerator is what we are looking at.
Is this like a PTO attachment for the tractor?
It is a PTO attachment for the tractor.
It's PTO or non-PTO. So when you're seeding, you're not using the PTO function. It's basically rolling the lawn and it's poking holes and it's dropping the seed directly in those holes, and there's a roller that rolls right behind that. This unit, you can also, if you wanted to go in, if you've got an area that in the summertime isn't taking water well, you can go in with that aerator, hit the PTO, and it will aerate the soil in those compacted areas. So it's kind of a dual use.
Power takeoff for a tractor. It's like the auxiliary attachment hookup in the back of the tractor.
There's a shaft that spins.
Okay.
You're moving through. Yeah, so it's kind of I looked at 3 different styles of this. This was the one I felt was actually one of the cheaper ones. And for our standard grass that we're going to be renovating areas, things like that, this is the one that fits us the best.
So, Tom, are we, just a question for me, because I'm looking at this and since we're, same question.
Yeah.
What shafts are we?
It's coming with an aerator shaft.
Aerator shaft?
Yep.
So here?
So you can buy different shafts for different applications, but that's the one we're doing.
Okay.
For our application, that's
So this would,
Are there others that you would like to get in the future?
not at this time.
Okay.
so this would go in and kind of aerate, slice, open the turf, and then the seed would be dropped in, and then you roll it out.
Yeah, so
So
like
if
a
you go-
multi-tine shaft would be,
So that would be here, where the slicer is?
yes, yeah. So
And
that,
you got, right,
there's gonna be a seed box that sits up on top where you load the grass seed into it, and it's got little tubes that come down
right there.
yeah, right there.
Okay, so that would be where the seed would be dropped in here after you slice, and then this is what rolls it.
All in one pass.
Yes.
It drops the seeds too. Nice.
So that's what we're talking about. Any questions on that for Tom?
Staffing time?
We haven't done a whole lot of this in many years because the price of seed went from $1 a pound to $3.50 a pound. And with our budget being so tight, we haven't done a lot of renovation work in the last few years. Some of it was we had reduced usage and we were closed down for a year plus.
Mm-hmm.
So
So what you needed to do is just golf shoes in a hand.
Basically.
So yeah, it's gonna be, it's something I've had on my list for a long time. It's just kind of getting pushed out, but it's time.
Pretty reputable company.
Very.
These guys, nice.
Any other questions? Matt, are you still there? Shows him still there. Can't proceed if we don't have Matt.
Does that thing have a warranty on it?
I'm sure it does. I don't know
Something.
exactly what it is.
Doesn't seem like there's a ton to go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty simple.
Pretty neat.
He's calling in. Okay, so if Matt comes back, we can pull on that. That's what we're looking at. So, let's go move on. And the other thing is 2023 budget. I'll just walk through. Trying to see if the field meeting before Matt gets back on too. Okay, so we're formally beginning work on the 2023 budget. And some information for you guys going into this cycle. Matt, let me know when you're back.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Okay, so can we do?
I could hear you just fine. I don't know how the audio dropped out, but my only question was back on that cedar slicer was the one you were proposing to move forward with this month, and just informing us on the other ones and the adjustments to the other ones, or what was the request?
Yes, we're just informing you on the adjustments to the other stuff, and that's what we wanted to do, so that when we come back with the asphalt stuff next month, you're not surprised that it's only 32,000 and not 41,000.
All right. So were we getting to a point where we needed to make a motion on the cedar slicer, or where are we on that?
That's where we're at.
Okay. I was hearing your conversation, Jake, but were there any open questions on it besides warranty and that sort of thing?
No, Tom answered my question.
And what's the total amount, Doug?
Total amount is
22.
$358.40.
Do you have any open questions, Jen?
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, would I then make a motion to approve the cedar slicer purchase in the amount of $22,358.40?
I'll second that motion.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the purchase for the cedar slicer in the amount of $22,358.40. All those in favor say aye.
Jake, aye.
Matt, aye.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the purchase is approved.
Okay. With Matt still on the line, why don't we go right into the talk about the fields meeting since we've got him here right now? And that way, if we lose him, the rest is just information that he can catch up on. Matt, why don't you go ahead and talk about
Sure.
the field meeting?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, so as Doug said earlier, we had a chance to finally sit down and talk with Doug and Tom and me and Eric, and I'll just summarize as best I can. And Eric may have his own comments and thoughts to share next month's meeting, but this is something that we've obviously been dealing with over many years, the issue of field usage and deconfliction, scheduling, communication with user groups. And the situation has been, exacerbated in past years with things like weather, and with, conflicts between groups. This year, the exacerbating factor is just overall demand, demand from, the variety of user groups that use significant portions of the park. Large areas of the fields, for example, are up across the board, which means that deconflicting is made more challenging. Communication with these groups is also challenging because in some cases there's not a single person who's designated for communications because the group is more fluid in structure. So that's been made a little bit more difficult. I think Sky's been doing a good job of building those relationships and contacts so that we do have a network to communicate with in terms of things like scheduling and deconfliction. But again, the demand is up across the board, and the scheduling windows in many cases overlap. People don't want to use the fields at 6 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night. Everybody wants to use the fields at similar times during weekdays and similar times on weekends. So you can see the part of the presentation there with the needs. So anyway, so just think of that as one chunk is the demand and the need for us to work around that, because there are consequences to the increased usage and the increased numbers, and that means maintenance and upkeep consequences, and those build on themselves, because as soon as you start doing maintenance and aerating things, then that potentially precludes the use of the surface for certain activities, maybe all activities. So that's one area where we are kind of an area and a half where we need to focus. Another area that is, again, a historical concern, but in this case is kind of growing in significance, is interaction with the school district. As we know from the last couple of years, the relationship with the school district has changed. Our policy on field usage and prioritization has not changed since that. Since the kind of fundamental relationship with the school has changed, and they reorganized and divided up facilities and started, in some cases, charging us for use of facilities. Our policy still remains, the prioritization remains with the school district ranking very high in the priority list, and their demand signal is looking like it's going to be pretty robust for the fall season. And that's the time, obviously, when the time changes, the levels of precipitation change, the levels of sunlighting change, and our bandwidth on fields gets dramatically reduced. And so we agreed to scratch the surface on I would say evolving the relationship with the school district. Eric has taken point for that to talk about the whole topic of school-owned and administered and maintained fields, like the intermediate school field, like the stadium field, like the football practice field, like the baseball field, and looking at the school request to us in light of the fields that they have in their own inventory and the overall relationship. We came to the conclusion that it would be better to make those initial conversations happen at the, in a one-on-one kind of format, rather than us as a board going to sit down across the table from the school district, school board at this point, to see if we can find some common ground, just, in that kind of one-on-one environment, and then build that into something that we can, consider in, potentially adopting into our policies, or modifying our policies, or including in our policies in a different way, looking at that MOU with the district in a different way. So, the takeaway is that the fields are under great demand, and that creates pressure for us and the staff. That creates pressure for the maintenance and budgets. And, what we have always done is done the best to service a diverse population as equitably as we can, and with providing as many facilities to as many groups as we can. And I think that continues to be how the staff works and operates every single day. It's just that there's great pressure on the maintenance side, and also on the program side, in the communication and deconfliction element of this. So we'll keep this as an agenda item ongoing, and we should have next month some of the feedback from the initial conversation with the school, and we should, we'll get an update from Tom on where things stand with, field material condition, readiness, maintenance, equipment, and from Sky on how things are going, communicating with the groups that are using the fields through the summer, and with the prospect of usage coming in the fall from the variety of user groups that will continue on through the fall period.
All right.
Anything else, Tom or Doug, that I didn't have from?
Just to recap, our three main issues as a staff are really, the soccer scheduling. You can see there that the youth soccer is just growing. It doesn't seem to be slowing down, which is weird when you look at the fact that our school district is actually looking at downside. But youth soccer is growing and continues to grow. We have everybody wanting to use the fields. And in general, what our scheduling issue is the schedule is youth soccer 5 to 6:30, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's it. Everybody shows up at that time. I've talked to the high school and their two teams, their two groups. It's actually 4 teams. JV varsity for both men and women. It's boys in the spring, girls in the fall. So we'll have girls this fall. But those two teams, generally, I try to hold to practice before 5 o'clock. And they generally will do 3, maybe 4 days a week practice on our fields. That's a huge impact when you think of the fact that they are probably the largest, fastest, strongest, most aggressive athletes that we have on our fields. And you think of the fact that the school district has also their own field inventory that they could use for that practice, but are coming to us and not using their own. If they had no fields, I would have no problem with what's going on. My issue is I don't, for our softball league, go to them first to use their softball field and their baseball field for our softball program. I used our softball fields first. If we had 10 softball teams in our adult softball league, I would then approach them when we filled up the form. It wouldn't be our first go-to. We had talked a little bit in the meeting about a credit system, like, giving them a credit for every field we use and balance it out, right? And I was like, I'm not looking at that. What I'm looking at is I'd like to have all those fields be in inventory, because right now it doesn't matter. You can go to any field of ours. It's going to be pretty much rock hard. It's going to be good to go. But come October, it's going to be a lot softer. Come November, we're going to have some serious problems. And December is when we have issues. So that's one of our issues is the scheduling. It's getting the soccer club to understand that they can tell groups you don't have to, like they had Monday, Wednesday, U10. And so every single U10 team have a few U10 goals. So they only have 2. So I don't know what, they're practicing with U12 goals and U10 goals with the U10s. I'm like, okay. And the U12s are on different days. It's a space issue up there. Everybody kind of just congregates all at once. Parking lot's packed. Everything's packed. We got everything going on. Whereas if they spread those practices out a little bit more, started some at 4, some Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, it would be a lot less demand all at once on the park. The other 2 issues, the school relationship you mentioned. I don't really need a credit system. I just want it to work for the community. They're using our stuff when they need to. We're using their stuff when we need to. But we're not going out of our way to use their stuff. They're not going out of their way to use our stuff. It's not our first choice. We had our own gym. I wouldn't use their gym until our gym was booked. Right? That's the plan. And then the only other thing that I don't think Matt touched on was we are seeing an increase again in private lessons going on in the park. We don't know how to deal with this because I've approached a coach and he's literally lied and told me that he's not taking money. I'm not taking money. I do this for my own with 2 kids, and then those 2 kids leave, and then another 2 kids come, and then those 2 kids. It's like, okay, you know what? I get that it might be fun for you to do once in a while, but when you're out here every week,
Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 1 o'clock.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 o'clock. Yeah, we kind of figured you're getting some cash for this somehow. You're getting compensated. We can approach them as long as, even if I saw money changing hands, you can just say, oh, that was for something else. There's no, I want to nuts and bolts. Either release this, deal with it, or do something about it, or just go, hey, we're not a police force. If you're not going to follow the rules, the one thing we talked about was having everybody register in the office whether you're charging or not. Unless you're just a dad kicking a ball around or throwing a ball around with your kid, or a mom, throwing a ball around with your kid, whoever, 2 kids throwing a ball around, you need to register with us in the office if you're going to be here on a regular basis. Period.
It's just another level of policing.
It's the same thing. It's like, and even then, are you charging money? No. You can't really do anything. So,
it's not just that though. We have a bike outfit that is a fairly large company was setting up in here on Sundays, rolling all the e-bikes out, and this was home base, and they were doing tours around the island. So I mean, that's a big dollar.
Wow.
And I stopped to talk with them. Oh, I'm sure we contacted you. I said, you guys have to contact the dealer of property. So this guy actually looked at the company and was like, this is a big outfit. So
he was contacting.
So there's more venture capital people coming in here utilizing our facility than I've ever seen.
So that's just where our concerns are. We had a good talk. I think Matt and Aaron saw where we were coming from, and what our points were. So I think we'll just continue this discussion, like Matt said, keep it on the agenda. I'll move it up to, up there with comprehensive plan programs, and keep it up there for a while and see what we can come up with as potentially policy. But, I I keep harping on the fact that we're parks and recreation, not parks and school athletics, we're not parks and competitive sports, it's recreation. So in my mind, once our recreational season ends in the fall, we should be charging for use from November through the start of recreational season in the spring. Because those fields would then be rested, or not rested, but not impacted as much, and the same in the summer. We had the high school girls team here how many times a week? Twice a week? All summer long.
Well, actually, no. So they requested, we had work to do on the field, so we put them off for 2 weeks. So they went to the high school baseball field, which I'm the head baseball coach. I'm like, yeah, whatever, it's summer, tear it up, I don't care. They used that the whole summer. So yeah, they never came to our fields this summer, which was great. To me, they could do something to help us out since youth soccer usage is more than double in the last 2 years. Plus, we do ultimate frisbee multiple times. Plus, we do community game multiple, it's 3 times a week now. Plus, we have the Guatemalan group. Plus, the guys that are out there doing paid for coaching. So we've got all this usage, and like the high school baseball field, go practice on it. Help us out. But Paul's been very resistive, and it's like, no, we just have to go use the best fields for our soccer team to practice on. Let's practice. And so, to me, they need to work with us because we host every usage on South Loop. Those fields, that's it. Yeah. And the big problem the last few years when we've asked, hey, in the wintertime here, can we utilize the sand-based field next to the school? No, I have to save it. Well, then I have to save my fields from your usage for the whole rest of the community. The thing he's saving that for is for the boys team the first 2 weeks of the season practice. So it's not a fair thing, and with the usage that I've seen post-COVID, we're more than double. I mean, it's bigger than I've ever seen it. So I need some help here to, okay, we'll let you practice, but you got to utilize some of your own fields too. You can't just rely on this. So anyway,
That's kind of where we're sitting on that, but we'll keep you apprised and we'll bring it back again each month.
In the private soccer lessons, there's no uniforms or anything like that. It's just
same kids
that are
showing up, being dropped off by mom.
Yeah.
Same coach.
I feel like if it was uniform practices, then you could have some sort of clause that they have to register easily for that, potentially pay the reserve field or something like that. Now seems like a gray area with the private ties.
So here's one. So soccer parent came to us, wanted to bring maybe 2 months ago. He brought over a guy from the Tacoma Stars. He wanted to do some lessons, and so we linked up with Sky. There's actually, I think there was 36 kids all week doing a soccer camp. Oh, wow. They rented our facility for $1,000, about $1,000 that came back to the park because he did it the right way. Yeah. And so to me, if you want to be out here training, either run it through us or you pay us a fee.
Yep.
Because it's a gift of public funds. That's against
Right.
the law.
Exactly.
It's that simple.
The issue is one of nuts and bolts enforcement. How are we able to stop it?
Well, right. So we have a policy in place. We just have someone who's willing to lie. I don't know what you do about that.
Yeah, no. If they're willing to lie, there's not much we can do. We can't. Oh, you're a liar.
And I guess you elect him president.
Yeah. 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 So
yeah, and I think that your point is right on, Janet. That we have a policy, we just gotta get people to and groups to adhere to it. And sometimes it's the same people that we know and recognize, and other times it's an e-bike company that shows up on a Sunday to run a tour out of the parking lot or whatever. So it's just something that requires constant attention and diligence, and we don't have unlimited bandwidth to do that kind of stuff. So it's
right. I mean,
do
Do you talk to the parents when they're dropping off their kiddos? I mean,
We have.
Yeah. Well, and I think to me, I think the long-term solution involves kind of what's in the sphere around these entities, like around the soccer people. There's a soccer club that is completely aware of all this, what's going on, and there are soccer players that use our facilities that are completely aware of what's going on. So, and in the same way, that in other activities, there are entities and organizations and stakeholders that are aware, and they're the eyes and the ears that we can't be. Like, if you ask any of the soccer club people, they would be able to tell you exactly who's in the park doing what, for whom, and how often, and all those kind of things. So to me, the solution, and we don't coming at it with a hammer or with police cars in the park is not the best answer in my personal opinion, but figuring out a way to just get people to comply by using everybody who's in the environment, not just us. So anyway, I think there's an answer there, and I think Sky is building the relationships with those groups to help to maybe exert that kind of pressure more broadly, and then bring people into compliance that we're just going to frustrate ourselves trying to do it on our own. Just my opinion.
So just to be clear, I previously, this guy taken over, I had those relationships with them, and I have reached out in the past to the soccer club saying, hey, do you know this guy? Who are these kids taking lessons? And getting nothing back. They don't know. So I don't know what the deal is, but I have done that in the past and have not gotten any information from it. That could have been one instance or two instances that they just didn't know who the person was, but it's just, it might be that they
Yeah. Well, I think it'll be a fluid thing. Like, they may not be aware that the Tacoma Stars player is coming over on Saturday, but right. So there's going to be, like I said, I think it's just one where we set the expectation as part of the overall relationship and reinforce that, and hope that we can use that to improve the situation. So.
Okay.
all right, thank you.
All right. So back to the pre-budget information. So we're just starting. As it always goes, we do not have the updated assessed values for the district yet. We won't get those till the end of September for levy calculations. We do need to plug something in though, and we'll be basing our initial assessed valuation on what we received from the county in January, which was the assessed value was $5,917,660,657 for the district. At our new rate of 22 cents per 1,000 of assessed valuation, that generates an initial levy. This is an initial estimate and is subject to change of $1,350,885.34. That is up approximately just over 300,000 from where we were, I believe, 320 if I'm not mistaken, this year. So that's the revenue side. Now, and again, that is likely to change. The levy assessed valuation will likely change, so we will likely see that probably not go down. Would be my estimate. Step and grade salary system will continue into 2023 with any staff not already at the top receiving their 3% step increase on January 1st. That's already going to be planned in. And then we use the CPI, the Consumer Price Index for salaries and wages, not seasonally adjusted each year as a cost of living factor through shifting the entire salary grade. This year, that was plus 4.6%. So the entire salary grade in the first draft of the budget will shift up by 4.6%.
So is that compounding? Is it the 3 plus the 4.6? Okay, just wanted to make sure.
So each grade, the whole scale shifts up 4.6%, and each step is 3% in that. So yeah, each step is 3%. So if somebody is on step A and they're moving to step B, they would get 7.6% over what they're making this year. But that's cost of living and merit altogether. Benefits, as we discussed.
And is it as one sum, or is it two separate calculations?
Basically.
So first, we should write the will increase it across the board by 4.6%.
Okay.
And then within that, each person will move up their step by 3.
So the 3% increase would be on the base plus 4.6%.
Correct.
So it's a 2-step, it's not a 7.6.
No, it's not a
Okay.
7.6, it's a 2-step. It's
Got
a
it.
4.6 and then 3%.
Cool. All right.
So the grade, the entire grade shifts.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're still, you're just moving up a step, but you're also getting the cost.
Yep.
And how many steps are there?
10.
10?
10. So anybody that's been here over 10 years will be on their last step as of January 1. Everybody with Sky and Alex. Austin's not there yet. So as of January 1, the 3 of us will be on our last step.
And then you just get COLAs thereafter?
And then we just get calls. Austin is not.
It's 4 of us.
4 of us will be on. Okay. In addition, as we discussed in the early preparation for the 2023 budget, after looking at our compensation benefit study, we determined that the initial the benefits package was behind in the fact that we did not provide anything for spouses and dependents for health and dental. So the initial draft will be paying, will show 80% of the premium for staff member, 80% of the premium for the spouses and dependents, 100% for the staff member. That's what, in general, most of the districts do that we compared. Staff member, if any staff member wants to put their spouse or dependent on, it will cost them 20% of the premium cost. Additionally, the draft will include funding of short-term disability and accidental death and dismemberment coverage for the employees by the district. That's something we saw in a lot of the districts in the city doing. These two are really important in this day and age right now, when we're posting a job and we're getting 2 or 3 people applying for it, because we really need to make sure that we're competitive in the market and continue with these people. It's very important. Elections. So this one hit us big time this year because we had a bleed over from one from last year. We had the levy that we did this year. So we are looking ahead. We have 2 commissioners on the ballot in November 2023 and are planning a bond issue for the pool. In my opinion, it makes sense to have both of them run at the same election time to reduce the costs. Because if you remember, the election where we were on in February cost us over $30,000. And we were one of 5 entities with multiple different items on the ballot. In November, it'll be split much more. So we're going to be talking with the elections department at Island County to kind of see if we can figure out maybe from this November's election what those costs would be, or from last November's election what those costs would be in the November election. Because the mailers would be maybe just a couple more pages. We have our share, but there'd be a bunch of other people sharing it with us. And then we're not doing it twice and paying $60,000 as opposed to doing once and paying 38 or 40. So our kind of push is that we should do those at the same time. It may not be the best for bond issues, but I think that's where a lot of smaller districts and municipalities are going to have to go because you can't afford that hit. So that's something for discussion, but that's going to be what we're planning on with our budget, is to put everything on one ticket. And then capital projects. Tom's been working on getting some numbers together and quotes on potential projects for 2023 and beyond. That initial draft will include staff recommendations on what should be included and targeted for 2023. Did I miss anything else here? No? Okay. So that's what we're currently working on and our current kind of assumptions and methods for initial draft of the budget, which you should see hopefully in September.
Is Park and Aquatic Foundation going to for potential put them on a ballot?
I don't think they can. I don't think they're legally allowed to.
So what's going to be put on that? Is this just a construction? Is this M&O?
It'd be a bond issue for construction.
For construction, you got to run the M&O concurrent because one doesn't pass.
That's a question. That's something we'll discuss.
I mean, that's the way we did this before, but one passed and the other didn't. It's dead.
That would be my recommendation as well, is to do it all at once. Because then if you don't get support for one or the other, you just don't move ahead.
Can't do it.
Yep. So there's some discussion points there, but yes, that would be my recommendation as well. Okay. Any questions on this kind of assumptions and foundations for the budget?
If you did run that M&O thing, can it be for something, projected out that far, or separate from?
That's the question we'd have to address. We'd have to look at whether that M&O could be, for lack of a better term, post-dated. Because we're going to be building it, it's going to take a couple of years to build. So it's not going to be like it's right there immediately when we get the bond money. It would probably be a couple of years later when we need the M&O. So it would almost be, we need to, I'd say maybe like 6 months minimum. We want that M&O money ready to go. So
Yeah, we talked to a couple of the other projects that are going on. The one that's closest to finishing is Lopez Island, and there's several other ones that are underway, and they sequence that out. Obviously, you don't need the operating money when it's just a bunch of stakes in the dirt, right? So, but what we've talked about as a steering committee has been, we need to be 100% transparent with the public as to the costs of the facility, not just to build it, but to operate it. So we don't want to come back, 2 years down the road when it's in the ground and full of water and ready to go, and then say, oh, by the way, here's the M&O that we need you to approve too. So the idea of the public education campaign is to say, here's what we're coming to you with a bond to build it, and here's what it's going to cost to operate. We're not going to ask you for that money now. We're going to ask you for it 2 years from now or whatever long it takes. But this is the cost that it's going to take month to month, year to year to run it and maintain it. So communicate that upfront, completely transparent, but not submit, a levy request for M&O for something that we're not going to draw from for 2 years because it's just not possible or even practical. So anyway, just remember that communication part. That's the idea, to communicate the total cost, so that's crystal clear from the beginning.
Well, and then the other way that we could possibly look at this is bringing on pool management and pool programming people very early in the game in order to really work on managing the construction, getting involved in the design, and doing that sort of thing as well. It wouldn't be the full nut of what we need, but it's something to consider when we think about this. I would hesitate, because if we're saying, and we're going to need levy down the road to run this, and it's going to be this much, I would hesitate to say that to the community and not get them to vote on it, because then we don't know if it's supported or if it's not supported based on the bond issue passing. And some people might not understand that and think that, we have people up on North Whidbey that don't understand that North Whidbey Park and Recreation Park and Pool District is separate from the city. So they voted no on their levy a couple of times, thinking that the city would just take care of it. And it's not the way that works. So it's an education system, it's an education process, but I would be very hesitant to move ahead with construction without knowing that the community supported by vote a levy for this.
Correct.
So that's my
Because
concern.
even if we do separate it and they understand it at the time, when you come back later, I would not expect them to remember that.
Right.
Right. But we just got to realize there are terms, for such things that require, like, we can't just have a vote and then not expend the funds for, the capital funds. You've got 3 years from a federal tax standpoint to expend them. So it's more complicated than us just putting it to a vote and then not spending it, I think. And we obviously don't have experience with this particular thing, but we got to have a sharp pencil when it comes to what we do and what we're allowed to do
Okay.
True.
by
No,
state and federal requirements. Like I said, the tax implications for the bond are you've authorized the bond and you don't spend it. You can be seen as trying to skirt the tax consequences of it, that sort of thing. So again, we just this is new ground for us across the board, all of us. So we just got to make sure that we're making good decisions, using good benchmarks from similar projects and similar kind of localities like us, and that we're following the rules.
Transparently.
Yeah. So another quick.
The other point I want to make is Doug was talking about the bond and the levy and the budget process. So you remember when we were going through the levy discussion and the setting the level, voting on the level, we had built that based on the 5-year budget projection and the comprehensive plan programs and deferred maintenance items and all that. So just as we prepare to review and look at the budget for this cycle, we'll bring those things back so that we can reference where we were in those discussions when we set the levy level and projected those 5-year financials, because we did that to achieve some outcomes from the standpoint of deferred maintenance and the standpoint of comprehensive plan. So like I said, that'll be the framework that we look at it in, because that was the framework we used to make the decision in the first place.
Thanks, Matt.
So, worst case, let's say we don't get the sports turf field approved in our grant cycle. Is that something we could, if we're going to run a bond in November, could we tack that on if we're going to run a pool? Maybe it's 2 separate projects, but if we're going to run a bond, to me, that's my highest wish list thing ever. Like that would fix 90% of all issues. So just a thought that we're not kind of right back to the drawing board again, pushing it down the road. We've been talking about this for 10 years. Just something to kick around, depending on how things come out of our grant cycle to look at.
Yeah, something to think about. Speaking of bonds, 2 years ago, our last agenda item, 2019, voters approved a bond issue for the purchase of Maxwell Trails Park. We said at the time that we wanted to send money and pay off the bonds as soon as we could. We're currently reviewing the expenditures, and we've reached out to Jim Nelson at D.A. Davidson to inquire a process for paying off, or at least paying back what we can, so that the bond issue gets closed as soon as possible. I'm hoping that now that we're in year 3 of 5. Is that right? We're in year 3 of 5. It's a 5-year bond. So there's 2 more years. I'm hoping the money we have left and the interest and all that stuff from the grant money's coming in, we should be able to pay the balance off and not have any more money coming in for next year.
By when?
I don't know. That's what we're working on.
Okay.
But before we start the process of paying the back bonds, with the amount we have remaining, we're going to build that access trail. And my thought was we pulled out some money for culverts, gravel, anything we need to get in, and then also an access way sign. Is that something the board would like to do? We can get those amounts and get them ready, and then hopefully try and nail everything down before we come back to you in September.
So before we pay it back, just get the rough access in with the sign.
Get the rough access in with the sign, kind of like what we have out here at Community Park, nice, you know,
One of the local
local harbors having to do it.
Yeah, because you were gonna go back to Pat, right?
We go back to Pat if we can, yeah. And then maybe have the Trails Committee sit in on design on that with, when we get to the point, myself and maybe Tom, and figure out exactly what in the sign. But to me, this is a logical place to take the money from. But we're gonna work with Jim and find out what we need to pay back to stop it at the end of this year. Because that would be something that we could then do a nice press release and say, hey, we told you we were gonna do this, we're doing it, there's no more taxes on this bond issue starting next year. Be a selling point, especially if we're planning on going back to the community in November of next year for another bond issue. Say, nope, that one's gone, you don't have to worry about that one anymore, here's a new one. Just my thoughts, but I think now's the time to make these decisions, because then we can kind of go, okay, here's our carve out for that money's now set aside. I don't know when Tom's crew, probably not gonna be till late fall before they can get it in there and do it.
October, I need for them before it gets wet again.
Yeah, so, and we do have to put culverts in, that's one of the, like, we have to make sure the water flows through there, so that's important there. And then talking to, Pat about signing and getting that set up is the other step that we need to do, get a number from him. But yeah, I'm not imagining that would be more than 10 grand at most total. I mean, you probably don't need that much for the gravel and culverts.
Gravel. Getting through that wet spots.
That's gonna be the tough thing, so. So we're probably talking whatever the sign costs plus $1,000 per ton.
I think that'd be.
I was gonna say, it's gotta be more than that.
Culverts are expensive.
Culverts are expensive,
Yeah.
so like 3 grand.
And gravel's gone up significantly.
Gravel's done.
Yeah, pretty.
So we're probably looking about 10. Would be my guess.
I think it would be some great PR for saying we're paying back the bonds, and now you can actually access the trail. Probably most people probably don't know about the access from the school parking lot. So
No.
this is something that it's going to jump out at them. They're going to want to check out.
Yep, and it'll be right on the roadway, which is nice. So we should be good to go. So are the three of you are comfortable with us pursuing that?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do that then. And I believe that's all that I have on my agenda, unless there's anything from the board.
No, thanks for
I got
sharing that, Doug.
quick question on the pool funding before it goes to the voters. Can that be like a staggered? I think you guys were kind of talking about it, staggered. So here's a levy for construction. Upon completion, the M&O would then kick in, or do it has to be two separate?
It is, so the bond issue, you're talking about two separate things. A bond issue and a levy are two separate things. The bond issue is us having banks write bonds to cover the cost of what we do, and then they're paid back over time by tax dollars. A levy is us going to the community and saying, we're running this for you, you need to pay us taxes in order to run this. So our general operation is run by a levy, capital improvement is generally done with a bond. They're two separate things. What I'm gonna go out and reach out to Jim Nelson and MRSC about, when I get back in the office in like a week and a half, is probably to talk about, can we do a levy in 2022 or 2023 that doesn't kick in until 2025? Can we say, starting this year and going through this year, as opposed to starting next year? Because usually when we do a levy, it specifies for the years this through this. I'm wondering if we can shift those years out. So we say, this levy won't kick in until construction's complete, but this is when we anticipate it kicking in. This is when it's going to kick in. And that's
and your question, Jake, about
That's
staggering. So
thank you for painting a better picture.
but that's the question. I don't know if we legally can do that. That's something we'll have to look
Which I think is what Matt was talking about when he was
Right.
saying.
well, and Jake, so there's the first thing that Doug mentioned, the capital bond. So what you send to the voters is an authorization to a maximum. So you say, we ask that you vote to approve up to X, $10 million in capital for this bond, for this purpose. And then the bonds are then issued. They can be issued all at one time, or they can be issued in a staggered way like you're describing. So you could say, we need 3 million of them up front to kick the project off and get it started, and then halfway through we're going to need the other 7 million. And so you issue the 3 million, and the public starts repaying not all 10, but just 3. And then a year later you make a second bond issuance for the remaining 7, but maybe you've got some other money from other sources like the state or another grant, and instead of 7 you just need 6. So you only issue the remaining 6, and in the end the public repays 9 and not 10. So you've asked for a maximum, you can't exceed that. You can then stagger the bond issuances out, and you could stagger them out more than 2 or 3 or 4, but each bond issuance has its own associated cost, the administrative cost of issuing the bond. So they generally say, yeah, split them up, but don't split them up 5 ways, split them 2 ways based on your timeline of your project. And one recent example is City of Fircrest, who rebuilt their pool, asked their voters for, I think, $13.5 million in a bond issuance, and it was voted and approved, like 74% approved it. And they only ended up using like 8 or 9 million of it. And they just never issued the remaining bonds because they got private donations that got them over the hump. So public authorizes the max, and then you can issue the bonds in the sequence you need to the limit you need, but no more than the maximum that the voters authorized.
We need to find out is whether or not we can future a levy.
Yes, separate topic.
Cool. Thanks, Matt.
Sure.
Any other questions, comments before we move on?
All right, no further discussion, then this board meeting is adjourned at 7:34.
Thank you, guys. And Carrie, if you're still there, I will swing by in 15 minutes and sign the voucher sheet.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, thanks, Doug. See you guys.
Bye, Matt.
See you, Matt.
See you, Dan. See you, Jake. Bye.